If your fuel gauge stops working, you can always keep the tank topped off. But what if you want to avoid more chances to spill fuel and get dirt in the tank? Well, that's what this extra is about. Welcome to our 5th classic John Deere 55 Series Extra, Zen and the Fuel Tank Sending Unit. Back in episode 17, part 2, contaminated fuel had fouled the injectors on the overbought 755. And that tractor had been running less than 2 years before, or that's what I'd been told. Upon inspection, the overbought 855 and 755 tanks had water and sludge, and the blind date 755 was half full of something leaving a sticky substance that smelled like turpentine. To make sure the tanks were clean, a good soaking with detergent and rinse with the power washer made them ready. Attention could now be turned to the fuel level sending unit. Of the 3 tractors featured in the blind date series, one sender looked decent but didn't register, and the other 2 were mucked up by bad or deteriorated fuel. So what can we do? Unfortunately, the only unit I could find was the OEM unit from John Deere. A new unit like this at John Deere is $201, I believe. Well, I did some searching around. I found this unit at Napa for $60. It's a ball nap 701-1809, and it has the right resistance of from 0 to 180 ohms. You notice here on the box, it shows the 10, 180, 240, 30. So this is the one you want. All right, I'm testing the resistance on an OEM fuel sending unit. I set the multimeter to the 200 ohm scale, and this particular reading will start at there was a 10, 5 to 10. As we go through the arc, amounting to letting the fuel slosh around in the tank a bit, we get up to 189 ohms. So that's similar to the ball nap unit. So that's enough to corroborate those readings. U.S. manufacturers usually go to a 33 by 240. So anyway, I was able to find this. And my plan is to remove the rheostat from the bottom of this unit, taking out these 2 screws, taking the wire loose, removing the rheostat and circuit board, or the wrap that's in there, remove that piece, drill a couple of holes, and screw this piece in, thereby replacing it and getting things to work again. So that's my plan, and we'll see if it works. Well, I'll run you through this as I go through it. So the first thing we want to do is move these tabs, bend them up out of the way. It might be easier just to start them with a screwdriver so you can get the needle nose under it. There. Now this also there. As you can see, there's the little wiper. It's like a needle on a phonograph record. You notice those little strands of wire across there. Those get worn and broken, so they don't make contact through the system. Well, we know this isn't any good. So we can lift that little circuit board. guess it's more like a circuit board, but not. Just a piece of Bakelite. The ground wire is connected to the frame. Now what I notice is there's a little plastic bearing here and this little plate. Evidently it could be fine-tuned. But I notice on the back there's just a little tab that sits through here. I don't know if you can see that. So we're going to knock that out. Okay, we'll see if we can knock this little guy out with our favorite little 2-pound hammer. Come here right up. Now that will give us that hole, plus there's another one here. So here's the plan. Since this new sending unit needs to be in the approximate same position as the other one, it's too wide, so these tabs are going to be bent out of the way. At that point then, I can use this part from the universal mount to fit down. Actually, it fits right in that saddle right there, but it holds us too far away. So these two also have to be set down to the side so our unit can go back closer to the fuel tubes. And then this bar will go inside and be bolted through here, actually through here, to hold this in place. See, that's the plan. The first thing we're going to do is get access to put this against the tubing. I might notice that the universal mount does not have the fuel tubes. That's why we're having to take the parts out of the universal to repair our existing John Deere version. Now the next thing to do is to take this unit off of the universal. We can use this gasket later. So on the back it's held with 2 Phillips screws. They're threaded into plastic, so we want to be careful with that. I also noticed while I was going over this deal, we've got a couple little bolts here. So instead of trying to use these little machine screws in some small holes, we may borrow these bolts to hold this. Allows us to get that off of there. Well, this is the fuel sender out of the blind date engine. I thought maybe what I would do is use this to put alongside the new one to check clearance. There, it comes out that way. If you decide to repair your fuel sending unit, you have to make sure that it will go back in the tank. These lengths of these pieces of tubing here are very important, because you need to be able to put the float in and then rotate the sending unit so it can go through that hole. This is the critical place right here to see that this gets in so the sending unit can slip by. At this point, let's go over details looking for any snafus. First, I've already determined the direction of sensor travel, which way is empty, and if that can be changed. The unit registers empty when the shaft is rotated fully clockwise with the housing facing the forward direction of tractor travel. This is set and can't be inverted. Even exchanging the connection wires won't make a difference. This means the sending unit must go in and live in the tank like this. It also means that the housing must be mounted to the rear of the fuel tubes as they ride almost touching the front tank wall. Note that any sender must fit through the hole in the tank. It looks like the hole can be reamed a bit, but it's limited by moldings just inside the opening that hold the threaded inserts for the mounting screws. So this means the idea of mounting the easy way wouldn't work. After a good amount of time putting the project off, a simpler solution was found. Here's what I decided. The flanges making up the original sensor cage were ground off to create a flat mounting surface. This will support the sensor to the rear of the fuel tubes facing the direction of tractor travel. The sensor will also be located above the original position and float arm adjusting accordingly. This just seems like the best way to secure the sensor to the mounting flange, let's call it. A rough measurement was taken to determine spacing, and spacers would be added to position the sensor between the sensor body and the fuel tubes. So I've mocked up the mount with some possible adjustments. So I used these threaded barrels to stand off the approximate distance away from the, let me get it in there, from the mount. And the screws are, of course, are a little bit long. But we have space in here for the adjustment screw, and let's see if it fits in the tank. So what we find is this area along the back of that sensor will need to be removed to get in the hole. I think we're going to be good on this side. Those fit the curvature of that opening, and then the opening is going to have to be reamed out a little bit too, just to allow all this to fit through. I've also determined that at the widest corners of the sensor, it'll have to go directly in the center of the hole, and since that isn't possible, I'm going to have to do the best I can to ream out this area here on opposite sides so the sensor can go in at a slight angle and then be rotated into its final position. Well, this next thing is going to get a little nasty. So I'm going to use a rat tail file to do the main cutting, and then I have a curved wood rasp to smooth up any rough corners and things like that. Of course, you can use any kind of a tool you want, and then make sure that you clean it out well afterwards. So I'm going to get after it, and then I'll show you what it looks like when I get done. Here's the result. Originally, I thought I could pull material here and here, but that didn't exactly work out right. I had to remove more in this angle to get the sensor to go through, and then also I had to relieve this area back here to let the nut and the tip of the bolt to go through. Still, there is enough meat in the tank for the gasket to seal the opening. Well, there you have it. All that needs to be done now is to bend up the level sensing rod, put some Loctite on the fasteners, and do the electrical wiring. I'll get back to that when I get back to working on the blind date again. Here's the parts list if you want to tackle this project. It's interesting to note that both the Universal and OEM sending units came in the same type of blue plastic bag, and they're made by VDO in India. As far as saving money, I'm not sure it did. If I was working for someone else or reconditioning their tractor, I believe I would definitely go with an OEM unit. But for the blind date, sure,